Hello students, welcome in today's session 12 Computer Science in Paper 1. Student, today we are going to start new chapter in Paper 1 C++. Already in last year we studied half part of C++, means all basic concepts such as data types, control structures, how to write simple programs, etc. etc. Now in 12th standard, next part we will study, means in 12th standard or in this chapter, advanced features are studied. It is also called as object oriented programming features, or it is also this C++ language is also called as object oriented programming language. So students, now in this video I am explaining basic concept of object oriented programming. What is object oriented programming, why there is a need to use of object oriented programming, and what is the difference between object oriented programming language and procedural language. This is the basic concepts, okay, just revise it. So first see the difference between procedural language and object oriented programming language. In procedural language, the larger program is divided into a function. Means in procedural, emphasis on doing things or functions, whereas in object oriented programming language, emphasis on a data or object. This is the main difference between procedural and object oriented programming language. Now first see the what are the advantage in procedural language. In procedural language, program divided into functions. Now see the example. Suppose I have written a program in which there are 4 functions. See here, 4 functions: function 1, function 2, function 3 and function 4. Okay. Now say in function 1, function 2, function 3, out of these 4 functions, now suppose in 3 functions, first 3 functions, that is function 1, function 2 and function 3, want to use one common variable, say int num. Okay. Which variable is used in first 3 functions? Int num. So declare variable num with data type int. So which is used in first 3 functions. But in function 4 is not used this variable. Okay. In function 4 this variable is not used. Only first 3 functions are used. Then how to declare num variable? There are in 2 ways. First I can declare int num in each functions. Okay. This num variable declare in every function 1, function 2, function 3. Okay. So int num will be a local variable for function 1, function 2 and function 3. So what will be happen, or what will be a problem here? Here I will be declaring same variable int num again and again in function 1, function 2 and function 3. Understood student? See, this int num variable only first 3 functions are used. Same, then this variable we can declare in 2 ways. First, this int num variable declare in function 1, function 2, function 3. Okay. So after declaring in every functions this num variable, what will be happen? So obviously there are wastage of memory How wastage of memory? Because same variable declare in again and again function 1, function 2, function 3. So it is a wastage of memory. So this is not suitable method. Okay, this is a local variable for each function. Now another way is num variable declare as a globally. Another way is num variable declare as a globally. Means, see, int num, this num variable is declared as a globally. So function 1, this is a global variable, and this global variable used as a function 1, function 2, function 3 or function 4. How they can use int num globally? But num variable, this variable, okay, this variable used only for 3 functions, function 1, function 2 and function 3. In function 4, the num variable is not need, okay, not a need variable num in function 4, but num variable declare as a global. In first method, num variable declare as a local variable, but in second method, num variable declare as a global. So in this case, what can happen? In function 4 can make any changes in this variable which are not suitable for function 1, function 2, function 3. Understood, student? In function 4, num variable is not necessary, but suppose in function 3, whatever changes in num variable, that changes is not suitable for function 1 and function 2. Okay. Why function 3 is changes in num variable? Because it is declared as a globally. If any variable declared as a globally, at that time we can changes or we can use this global variable anywhere in program. Okay. So after using this declaration of global declaration of variable, it is not suitable for this method. So int num is not safe here, because any function use int num because num is declared as a globally. After all, what is the conclusion? Data is not safe in procedural language. Understood, student? In first variable, wastage of memory. In second variable, if globally is declared, then in any function can changes in global variable, this is not suitable for other variable. So this is not a suitable, okay, this is not a safe in procedural language. Now see, in object oriented programming language, what do you mean by object? Object oriented programming language, programs are divided within objects. Okay, in object oriented programming language, emphasis on data, but in divided into objects, not onto a function. Emphasis on a data or object. Okay, emphasis on a data or object. What is the object? Object is a basic runtime entity. What is object? Object is a basic runtime entity, which is a living or non-living thing. Which is a living or it is a living or non-living thing. So in object oriented programming language, programs are related with the real world. Okay. So let us take an example. Suppose student is a object. Okay, student is a object. Now in student, here student is a object. Now object is a living or non-living thing. So student can be object. Now what are the attributes of student? Attributes means parameters. Okay, attributes means parameters. Now see, roll number, name, standard, division, mark. This is the attributes of this student. Now one more thing which is related to the object. Object always divided into its characteristic and its behavior. Now here characteristic nothing but its attribute, and its behavior means, suppose I calculating average of student. Okay, I calculating average of student. This is a data. It is also called as parameter. And suppose here I calculating average of student, means average functions here used. Okay, so student can be divided into data and function. See, student can be divided into data and function. So every object has its own attribute, has its own parameter, and its behavior. In word of programming, say function. See, student is a object. Object may be living or non-living thing. So here student is a object. This object, what is the attribute of this object? What is the parameter of this object? Suppose roll number, name, standard, division marks. This is the parameters of this student. Suppose take employee. What is the parameter of employee? Employee number, department, employee name, address, basic salary. This is the parameter of employee. Like this, student is the object. So for student, this is a parameter, and this parameter also called as data. Now in this calculating average, means what are the percentage of given student. So calculating average. So what is this average? Average is a function. So every object has its own parameters, has its own data and functions. Okay, so object consists of data and function. This is a difference between procedural language and object oriented programming language. Now see, clear points here: traditional procedural language and object oriented programming language. See here, first point, the problem is viewed as a sequence of these things to be done. Okay, now in object oriented programming language, the problem is decomposed into number of entities called object, and then builds data and function around the entities. Understood? Just now we see what is object, what is data, or what is function. Now here sequence of things, here sequentially declared in procedural language. Now here emphasis is on doing things. Okay, now here emphasis is on data rather than procedure, or emphasis is on object. Okay, here emphasis is on functions. Now here larger programs divided into smaller programs known as function, and here programs are divided into entities known as object. Entities means object can be divided into its own characteristic, own parameters or functions. So it is called as also entities. Now in procedural language, data move openly around the system from function to function. One function to another function you can move easily, but when object oriented programming language or object concepts is used, at that time data is hidden, cannot be accessed by external function. Okay, this is a very important point. Data is hidden. This data cannot be accessed by external function, but opposite of in traditional, you can easily move one function to another function. Now in procedural language, top down approach in program design. Now in object oriented programming, bottom up approach in program design. Bottom up means, what is the meaning of this bottom up? Bottom means at the bottom we can write main function. Okay, and in top down means main function right at the top. So it is called as bottom up and top down approach. Understood, student? What is the difference between traditional and procedural language and object oriented programming language? These questions asked in board paper for 3 marks. Okay. Now next is data types in C++. Already we have studied these data types in 11th standard. Just revise it. Okay. So data types in C++ divided into 3 types: built-in data type, derived types and user defined type. These are the 3 data types in C++. Now in built-in data type, again divided into 3. First is integral type, then void. Okay, first integral type again divided into 2, int and char. Now second type is void and third type is floating. This floating type again divided into two parts, float and double. Okay. Now these are the whole data types in built-in data type. Okay, including in built-in data type. Now in derived data types, array, function and pointer, and user defined data type, structure, union, class and enumeration. Okay. In board paper, enlist what is the question asked depend on this topic. Enlist the basic data types. See, enlist the basic data types used in C++ with size of data in terms of bytes for each. Here ask size of data in terms of bytes means only basic data type. Basic means this built-in data type is also called as basic data type. Remember, built-in data type is also called as basic data type. Okay. So only draw this part. Only draw this part. Okay. Don't draw this derived and data type if basic data type is asked. Now in integral data type, int and char. Okay. Int variable requires 2 bytes. Int variable requires 2 bytes. Okay. Char variable requires 1 byte. Okay. Now void data type means no return data type. Always empty. Empty argument leads to a function. Declare generic pointers. Not returning any value. Void means not returning any value. And floating type variable, float and double. In float 4 bytes are required and in double is 8 bytes are required for double. Okay. Only this built-in data type asks for 3 marks in board paper. Okay. Understood, student? Now end of this session 1. Thank you.